when you start to exercise, moving your muscles and working out, you're actually stimulating something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factors. This helps the brain to create neuroplasticity, and that's something you really need if you have traumatic brain injury, because we need the energy in the brain so that it can remodel around that injury and get you back to at least a functional state.
Realize that whatever your mind conceives and believes it will achieve, and start thinking that way more and believing that way more, and it'll work.
Welcome to the Brain Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Patrick Porter. Please join us on our mission to better a billion brains. Enjoy the episode and remember to share it with your family and friends.
Hello, BrainTap Nation. This is Dr. Patrick Porter bringing you another special edition of the Brain Fitness Podcast. I got a call into the office from Rory Ross, who's going to be talking to us in just a moment, and he said, hey, I'm doing a lot of things to work on my brain, but I found BrainTap to be very useful. And the story he told me, I said, you know what? I think BrainTap Nation needs to know about this story because there's a lot of people out there suffering from traumatic brain injuries or even dementia or Alzheimer's, all these different brain functions, but we can't make those claims, but what we can do is we can have people share their experience with you. So in no way is this podcast talking about a medical intervention. We're just talking about how someone used BrainTap to assist them in the recovery of their brain function. So Rory, welcome to the podcast.
Nice to meet you, Patrick Porter.
Yeah, nice to be here. Hey, tell us a little bit about what happened to you. What prompted you to have to go get help with your brain? What was going on?
Well, I had traumatic brain injury, and that was 6 years ago. And they basically went to a head neurologist in this area, and they said permanently disabled. And I know I didn't like those words, and I thought with those words they could sink into my subconscious mind, and then I would be. So then I kept looking around. I found so many different things just to go and work out, exercise, all that kind of stuff to get my brain a lot better. And then I ran into BrainTap. And once I hit BrainTap, it's not just BrainTap, it's other things working along with it. It just works together. And I just, in the first session, I felt, so much better. It just got so much better for me.
Right. Tell us a little bit about what you used at that time, and then we'll talk about what you're using now for a little bit of maintenance and things of that nature. But tell us about the technologies you did use or the techniques. What did you find? Like if somebody's out there struggling with TBIs, what would you recommend as a friend to them if they were doing it? Not just BrainTap. I know we're going to talk about BrainTap, but tell us about the other things you used in conjunction.
Well, I decided I went after my accident. I said, I'm going back to the gym. And we're going back to the gym, just getting physical. I used to go to Orange Theory and F45, and I just had the functional workout on it. It worked out so much better. But then there was still something not quite working in there. And then I ended up running into methylene blue and used methylene blue. And just with that there, it just more oxygen in the brain and everything. It worked out so much better. But then also needed this year every morning, every afternoon, every evening, if I can, to use BrainTap, and it just boosts me back to where I should need to be and want to be.
Okay, let me tell the listeners a little bit about what you did because it's really good. When you start to exercise, moving your muscles and working out, you're actually stimulating something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factors. This helps the brain to create neuroplasticity, and that's something you really need if you have traumatic brain injury because we need the energy in the brain so that it can remodel around that injury and get you back to at least a functional state. And then when you use methylene blue, which we recommend here as well, methylene blue actually works at the cellular level. It actually works with the mitochondria and brings more energy. It's light activated. So some people do this through, they have lozenges you can take. You can do it. You can spray up your nose. You can take, there's droppers you can take. So there's a lot of different ways you can use methylene blue. But what we find is, especially when we're measuring it on our neurocheck, is that it increases the energy production at the cellular level, meaning it makes more ATP. So when you think of ATP out there, if you're not familiar with that term, that is actually the molecule that is the building block of the body, or what we call the currency. So if you go to the bank and you try to cash a check and you have no money in the account, you can't cash that check. The same is true with building your body. So think of it like you're building up your bank account of energy resources so the body can rebuild, remodel, and replenish. The body is the innate intelligence. The body knows what to do, but if you don't have the building material, it can't do the work. So in most people, when they have a traumatic brain injury, have low energy. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more about BrainTap in a moment. But when you're using BrainTap in the morning, we're upregulating that brainwave called SMR. This is the one for cognition. This is the one that really gets affected because especially if the damage is in your frontal lobe or in the area of the brain where we have to do cognitive thinking, that part gets compromised and you can feel sluggish. The brain wants to shut down, put you to sleep so they can recover. But just resting and relaxing can take months, if not years, for that recovery to happen. And sometimes it never happens because if there's a hematoma or blood in the brain, we have to get you sleeping again. So that's why they're doing those sessions at night to get you to go into that deep state of sleep. We know that it will increase your deep sleep cycle, and that's when the brain opens up a part of the body called the glial lymphatic system. This is when the body gets to detox. So there's only 3 reasons people have problems with their brain, right? Thoughts, which wasn't your case, trauma, which was your case, and toxins, which was your case, although you might not have known it because the brain didn't have a way to get rid of those toxins. So by doing exercise, you're going to get rid of toxins. By doing methylene blue, you're going to burn out the toxins. By doing BrainTap, bringing more energy into the brain, you're going to stimulate the body, but by sleeping deeply, getting better sleep, you're going to detox the brain. Now, in the middle of the day, those who have heard me before say in the middle of the day, anytime you can do it, you're going to upregulate the nervous system because it's normal for you to get tired in the middle of the day. Now, when you have a traumatic brain injury, that kind of amplifies because you didn't have the energy in the first place. And when you lose 20 to 30% of your energy throughout the day, which is normal, most people would go get coffee, tea, or chocolate, or some kind of stimulant, which isn't going to help the electrical system or the nervous system of the body. So you were doing all of those things. So tell me, in your journey, you started doing these things, then you added BrainTap. What did you see happening as you added BrainTap to the equation?
I just jumped right to the topic. I felt good again. I didn't have the injury. I felt like everything just felt so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So by getting this energy, what were you starting to be able to do that you weren't able to do before?
Well, for one thing, just even remember people's names and remember what I was doing that day, and even just every once in a while I get very, very frustrated, but then the frustration was gone.
That's great. So again, it's normal to feel these emotions. What's not normal is to be stuck in them. And that's a sign of TBI as well, or traumatic brain injury, is that you can't change gears. If you're happy, you can stay happy. If you're sad or upset or angry or tired, it's hard to shift the gears out of that because you don't have the energy resources to do that. So you started to find yourself doing things that you really wanted to do, but in the past, maybe you just didn't have the energy or effort to do that. So now that you've been using it, when did you start to, you said right away you started to feel something, but when did you feel like, hey, I can start reclaiming some happiness in my life and be more with your family and friends and things like that?
It was probably a couple of weeks after I started doing it, and I had to do it consistently, not just every once in a while. I had to make sure I did the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. Yeah. But there's another thing I did add in there too. I added ice baths. When I get up in the morning, I do that ice baths, and I get your mind down to where it should be.
Yeah, and that's going to bring down inflammation, which is also a big thing that happens during TBI, as your brain is basically it's sending out the 5-alarm fire, and the fire trucks are trying to get there. And of course, while you're doing your everyday work, it's kind of hard for the brain to reboot while you're trying to do what you do during the day. So we have an ice bath here. We have 2 of them actually here at the research facility. We find it's awesome. I mean, I just spoke at ChiroCon, which is quite a few offices that use this in their clinics for medical reasons. And I was speaking about how it affects the brain because there's not a lot of ways we can get that inflammation down in the brain because it's protected, and so, but when you get in that ice bath, the body has to create those neurological responses and says, hey, what the heck are you doing? We're in a ice bath. So when you started doing the ice bath, how long did you do it for?
Oh, I still do it. How long did I stay in there? I usually stay in there for 3 to 5 minutes. But then for a while there, I couldn't go to the gym because I had an operation. They said I couldn't go to the gym. So I actually jumped in there for 20 minutes. And it was very, very cold and everything. But it stimulated the brain so much. It made me feel so much better after that. It's hard doing it, but it's the results you feel so much better after. Yeah,
that's great. Well, there's so much more science out there about cold therapy and what it does. I mean, they have machines that do this cold therapy for other things, but an ice bath or getting into a plunge is a really incredible way to do that. So Yeah, they say, for those listening, most of the time they say at least do it every 72 hours. But doing it every day is just like using BrainTap. You can do it every day, 3 times a day if you want. The body will, if you're Wim Hof and you're jumping into the water and doing your breathing techniques, he lives in the water and the ice water. He goes on those hikes in the mountains. And so if you're not familiar with ice plunges and that, I recommend going on YouTube, just typing in Wim Hof, and you'll see this guy. He's a crazy man. They call him the caveman because he basically runs around in Arctic weather with just shorts on in his walking boots, and then he'll jump in a open water like a polar bear or something. And people thought he was crazy, but there's a lot of physiological responses going on. The science is pretty clear that once you bring down inflammation, the body can heal. I tell people you can't paint the house while it's on fire. So once you put the inflammation out, the body can begin to heal again. Now, when you do the ice baths, I know there's a halo effect, like you get a little bit of a rush, a high, right when you get out and get warm again. There's kind of an euphoric feeling. Are you still feeling that when you get out of the ice tub?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Once your brain gets regulated back to normalcy, you'll start to feel that. It's like a rush. You can't buy that much neurotransmitters that are happening. So the brain will get you to feel better. And then now, as you're doing this now, you went from being told, hey, you're basically, you can't do anything. You just sit at home and wait for yourself to die or something. That's unfortunately the medical solution. Because when they don't have a solution, they tell you you're terminal or whatever. This is the way you are the rest of your life. They don't know that the body changes. The bodies that we're talking to right now, Rory, yours and mine, they're no more than 2 years old. Every cell has been changed. But the patterning is from the past experiences. So the trauma that we talked about is still there. So we have to eliminate that trauma. So how did you find BrainTap helping you to deal with the memories of that trauma or the thoughts about that and getting to have a more positive mindset?
Well, I just started thinking, like, for a while there, I think I was terrible because I had this accident that I said, you know what? This accident made me stronger. And just by listening to BrainTap and everything, my thoughts started going that way. Because I said, this accident, it was a profit for me to make me stronger. So it got my subconscious thinking that way. So then my conscious started thinking that way. Because I know my subconscious is 95% of my brain. But my conscious is only 5%. And it's there all the time. Unless I jump into BrainTap or go to sleep.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, we tell people, a lot of people spend all their life trying to change that 5%, but the 95% is controlling what's going on. That's the part that's building those 50,000 cells per second, blinking your eyes 20,000 times a day, digesting your meal, and all the other trillions of things that are going on in the cells and systems and organs of the body. So, yeah, we want to retrain that automatic system because we're so busy being busy with our conscious mind. We don't have time to worry about our heartbeat or our digestive system or what cells to change or all of these other things. So as you tune in to using BrainTap and using a positive mindset, where do you see yourself going? What do you think the future can hold once you get maybe medical clearance or whatever's going to have to happen?
I think I'll be top of the world. I'll be better than I've ever thought I can go. Wherever I could, whatever I want to do, I'll be able to do it.
Right. And I think this is a good thing for the listeners out there because we all go through things. We didn't go through the traumatic brain injury like you did. I happened to go through one with a bicycle accident in California. And I reached out to our science officer, Dr. Sidral, and he wasn't our science officer at the time. He wrote the book for Dr. Hamlin, Photobiomodulation of the Brain. And he told me about red light therapy. And I started using it. And that's why we have the ear lights that we have in our ears right now, because when I started using it, I used a brain cap. And when I went back a month later, they told me, "Are you sure you had a traumatic brain injury?" And yeah, I did. I didn't remember anything for almost 2 days. I didn't know what a cell phone was. I didn't know I was married, and they actually took my driver's license away until I got cleared. I couldn't even drive. So it was but I did everything I could to get my brain back. And a lot of people think, hey, you've got this brain injury. The medical profession says, hey, you can't do anything about it. Well, we're in a day and age now that you can do something about it. You can take back your health just like you did. So if I was a friend that you know, and I just had a traumatic brain injury, what would you tell them would be I know the 3 things that you're doing. How would you tell them to use that so that they could, start to get the same results you're getting?
I would say look at my life, look at where I could be, and look at where I am. Where do they want to be? And if they want to be a way better person, start doing these things and even look into different things. Realize that whatever your mind conceives and believes, it will achieve, and start thinking that way more and believing that way more, and it'll work. And just start doing BrainTap and doing other things along the way with it.
Right. So when you think about your future, where do you think this could ultimately end up for you?
I believe it'll be amazing because there'll be so many people using this thing, and I don't know. It's gonna be amazing.
Right. So now
That's how I see it.
when you go to start your dreams, or you start doing your brain tap session and you start visualizing and realizing these dreams, have you found that now your future seems a little bit brighter, a little bit more capable, a little bit more able than the doom and gloom that we unfortunately get when we go to the medical doctors? Because they're trying to protect themselves. Remember that. They just don't want to be sued. If you don't get better, if you get better, that's a great consequence. But they're always telling us all the negatives about it. And they don't realize, like a witch doctor, that when you're telling the negatives, some people will latch onto that negative. They're not like you and say, you know what, you might have given me this diagnosis, but I'm going to go out and see if I can regain my health. So what do you have to say about someone like that? Because a lot of people give up. I mean, my mother died at 49, and she had cancer, and the doctor told her she had 6 weeks to live. And I said, oh, my God, that's a terrible thing to say. She died in 6 weeks. And this was way back in the 80s. But in the process, I think doctors should be telling us both opportunities. But they seem to focus on the negative. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. No, the negativity, every time I see negativity or hear negativity, I just look at it like that's a cloud. It'll float right by. It will not stay there. Unless I focus. The more I focus on it, the more it'll stay there. And I just thought when somebody says something negative, I just got to say, if they say something to me, well, because you are this way or whatever, you have those many days to live, I'd say, well, that's what you think, but it's not what I think. Because what I think is more powerful. If I do what you think, it's like you pulling the trigger.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I wish I could have been there with my mother. I didn't hear about it till like a week after because she wouldn't tell anybody, and then it already sunk in. And unfortunately, when you're in a vulnerable state, especially when you're just tired and sick, it doesn't even have to be a real injury. You're not going to have the same capacity to think. So it's important that we keep our capacity to think really high with the energy than what we do. So what would you say to somebody who says, hey, Rory, this BrainTap thing, I don't know about it. What would you say is the main reason they should use it? And maybe they don't have a traumatic brain injury. They just have stress in their life or something. They don't have to have a problem.
I'd say that 95%, 85 to 95% of all sicknesses and diseases are started right there in the brain. And the biggest pharmacy out there is the one between the ears. And I said, if you want to work on that biggest pharmacy and on that, just jump on this thing and it'll work. And for the first 2 weeks, you have for free, and then you can also have 99 cents for the first month after that.
Yeah. So you can try it out. You can see if it works for you. I always love it when people can test on themselves because it's hard to get people to understand it. It's like describing atmosphere to a fish. You try to tell them, I lay down, these flashing lights happen, these lights in my ears, and I'm listening to these talks, and then I wake up and I'm recharged. People just don't get it because it's too simple. They want to have a real complex problem. And of course, if you can stack some things with it, if people have, some people have stacked like PMF mats, that's pulse magnetic therapy, and then, or they can do cold plunges, they can do infrared saunas, they can do all these different things will help. But to get the brain back, to get the brain working and operating in that alpha beta range, which we need when we're awake, we need to retrain the brain because of this. So when you think about people in the world today, what do you think the biggest reason is that more people aren't using BrainTap?
Well, I think in Canada is because Canada healthcare, it's government funded. And I think that's the biggest thing up here. And I think like some people they don't see deep into it. They just think, well, there's got to be a pill for it. And they're wrapped up with the pharmacy. Because the pharmacy has them thinking the way the pharmacy wants you to think.
Right. Yeah, I always tell people you can't have the pill without the skill. I mean, we just did a research study down in Brazil, and we took people on opioids. And, of course, everybody got opioids because they were all doing the surgery. But the people that used BrainTap at the end of the 30 days, because opioids are only approved for 4 weeks of use. But most people have used that. They keep the group that used BrainTap were all off it in 4 weeks. The group that didn't use BrainTap are still on them, as far as I know. The last time we checked, it was over 7 months.
Really?
They were still using the opioids because the brain will take the path of least resistance. So you got to do some work, right? You got to take the effort and do what's necessary. And of course, a lot of people think insurance or our medical society is healthcare. It's not healthcare. It's mislabeled. It's sickness care and it's critical care. I mean, I wouldn't want to be outside of one of our countries if I was going to have a traumatic brain injury. Of course, we could get handled. The immediate care is really super, but the long-term care and the thinking of health, they don't even think about that. You know, what happens is they only worry about it if you're getting injured. And I learned down here in America, in the United States, I heard from Del Bigtree, who's now working with Robert Kennedy. He was speaking at an event, and he said the way the insurance bills in America, the insurance companies are actually making money the sicker you are. People go, how can insurance companies do this? Well, they raise the premium. So even though in Canada your government is paying for it, they're paying it only to a degree that the companies that are running it are making money. They're not doing it because they're nice people and it's a not-for-profit organization. Somebody's making money off your sickness. And if you have somebody that can create a problem and a solution at the same time, you've got a monopoly. And so, we have all these healthcare professionals out there, true healthcare professionals. That's somebody you go to when you're not ill, you're not critically injured. If you have those problems, then please go to see your medical doctor. But if you don't see somebody that is an actual healthcare practitioner, somebody who's worried about your health, is your heart rate good? Are you physically strong? Are you mentally sound? These are things that we can work on while we're well. We don't have to wait till we have a breakdown to have a breakthrough, right? So what would you say to somebody who's just thinking about it? That maybe they've learned about it and they said, hey, Rory, I saw your podcast and you talked about your story, but do you think it worked for me? Have you thought of anything going on out there that would say, no, this wouldn't be for somebody?
I wouldn't say there's anything out there. This is for everybody, I believe. And but I would say just go ahead, get on the download what I get to, and they'll go ahead and have 14 days free, and then the next month for 99 cents. And most of them will feel it and go on and do it.
Yeah, we have a 70% rate when they do the trial that they keep using it, and our average user uses it a minimum of 28 times a month, so they're getting some benefit from it. But the hardest thing is getting people able to try it, because they look, like you said, it doesn't come in a pill or a potion or with a RX pad, so you can take it to your pharmacy to get it. But the brain, as you said, it can create 30,000 different neurochemicals with just a thought. So let's get this neurochemistry going and get people feeling better. So you've shared a lot with us. I appreciate it. It's been wonderful. I'm glad that you raised your hand, called us up and said, hey, this is really working for me. And they gave you my name. You gave me my name. And I said, hey, let's get this out to BrainTap Nation. But is there anything you want to leave BrainTap Nation with before we end the podcast today?
I'm impressed that you guys are around after my brain injury.
Yeah, we've been around for a long time, since 1987. So we've been doing it. It's just when somebody feels like they can just, like you said, just get a pill for every ill, that's not the case. But very few people, even SSRIs, people are taking them out there. And I'm not saying get off them, go to your medical doctor to do that. But SSRIs were only approved for 2 weeks of use. But most people get on them and stay on them for life. And the doctor will even tell you they don't even start working until 28 days. Well, that tells you they're not even working.
So SSRIs are depression.
Yes, yeah, the serotonin uptake inhibitors, and basically they're keeping the brain from processing serotonin, and so you're supposedly feeling better. But if you look at the side effects, I don't want those side effects. I mean, and plus you're dependent upon them. Then I say never give away your happiness to something else or someone else. And we have this pharmacy. You can create happiness from the inside out. You don't have to get it from a pill or a potion or from anyone else. When I was bringing my kids up, I told them, don't ever give your remote control to somebody else. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, because they'd say, Dad, you're making me mad. And I said, you gave me the remote control again. I'm just going to sleep, put them to sleep. And they go, that's not going to work. I said, well, you gave me the remote control for anger. Why don't you give me the remote control for sleep? Right? So we need to understand that emotions are energy in motion. There are triggers we all have that disrupt our mental well-being. Once we know those triggers, That's what BrainTap was invented for. You can start to desensitize those triggers so you're not being controlled by external forces. I mean, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be unhappy. It's just not okay to stay there. Usually, I've heard it said that we need to be more like babies and children because, they might be fighting and arguing with each other, but you look out in the afternoon and they're playing again. They don't hold the grudges and all those things. So we need to learn to forgive, forget, and move on, as I say in the series. So, the brain, we're meant to live a really good, powerful, positive life today. So I appreciate you sharing all this with BrainTap Nation, and I hope to hear more from you as you continue to learn and grow. And when you're ready to do something more, we're here to help support you to do that. Okay, so BrainTap Nation, you just heard from Rory and his experience. If you've had a positive experience with BrainTap, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear your story, love to have you share it with the world, because the more people like Rory step up, the more we can help the world. Remember, I'm on a mission to better 1 billion brains, and that's your brain if you've listened this far through. So if you're not a BrainTap user, like he said, go to braintap.com. Whoever, maybe somebody's using it, maybe they have an affiliate link, maybe you're going to a doctor's office. Go there and they will give you that link, because if you go to their link, you can get that additional 99 cents in 30 days. So you can try it for yourself. You should be feeling something within the first 14 days. And I always tell people, if you have a Whoop or a Ring or an iWatch, something like this, you can actually measure your sleep. That's the first thing we tell people to look at, because 90% of people that do our trial will report back that they're having their best night's sleep. And they can measure that by having an hour of deep sleep and 2 hours of REM sleep. And their scores will be over 80%, which a lot of people will score in the 40s and 30s, and 2/3 of the world isn't sleeping. So that's a good test for you out there if you're wondering, how can I even test if this works? And then if you want to upgrade to the headset, then you get the light feature. So with the light feature, we're actually using what's called retinal flashing and light therapy, and this will supercharge the cells. And if you're doing methylene blue, that Rory said, that we recommend people do, if you do that right before you do your BrainTap session, or at least 10 minutes maybe before to get in your bloodstream, it's light activated, which means it's just like eating greens. Greens will absorb light energy and move it through the body. And that's really what our body needs, is more light, more energy to heal and recover from. So if you're listening this far, remember, it's your brain we're working on. You can be part of the solution. And once you get your results, you can do like Rory and share it with the world. And let's get 1 billion people out there with high functioning brains and healthy bodies. We're going to have injuries that happen, unfortunately. We can't avoid those, but we can recover from them. And the biggest deterrent of that is stress, as you heard Rory say. Stress they say is 97% factor in all illnesses. So when you get rid of the stress, that's the interference, because your cells are either in growth mode or in recovery mode. So when you're in a parasympathetic state, the rest, digest, and recovery state, your body is more open to healing, because that's when you heal, when you're in deep sleep. So we can synthesize that through a BrainTap session and get you to have more energy, more vitality, and a better outlook on life. So this has been the Brain Fitness Podcast. I thank you for listening. And if you know anyone out there that could benefit from what Rory had shared today, then please like and share this podcast. Let's get it out to the world. Let's start changing lives, because let's not keep this under a bushel basket. Let's pick it up, let the light shine, and let people know that there is a solution. Even though their medical practitioners might not be aware of it now, but I'm sure as you go back to your medical practices and you show them, because it's physically working for you, they're going to take notice. We have 3,000 clinics down here in the United States using it. And, I've gotten over 4 different Lifetime Achievement Awards in the last 2 years, because professionals that 10 years ago wouldn't even let me in their conference because they didn't understand the technology. Now they're using it with their patients and they're finding results there. So if you're a clinician out there and you want to bring BrainTap into your office, we also have a solution for that. So again, this has been the Brain Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Patrick Porter. Please like and share, and let's change the world one brain at a time. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on our mission to better 1 billion brains. Follow at Dr. Patrick Porter on social media for updates, and remember to practice brain fitness every day.